So I'm just finishing my Alchemist Life 2, and I wanted to go over what I did. A few days ago, we did the Ravenloft chain on live stream. We did the whole chain on R8, start to finish, and I want to grab all of those and post them as individual quest videos on my YouTube channel. And I want to preface that mini-series with a little introduction of what I've done. Because, Alchemist is new. We're all still learning it. It's literally only been out for a few weeks or whatever. And this isn't going to be any kind of a build guide, but I just want, people to see what I've done, and hopefully viewers can get some ideas about the kinds of alchemists they might want to make, and, get some feedback from me about how things performed. So this is my end of my second Alchemist life. I'll be reincarnating right after this. And I did like a tank thing. Okay? I did 5 Paladin and 15 Alchemist. And this build was inspired by the build that Unsinful had been talking about. It's not the same build, though. I was just he was talking about what he was doing, and I wanted to try something similar. Now, what he did was 5 Paladin, 12 Alchemist, and 3 Cleric, but he said that, 3 Fighter would be probably even better. And he was posting, like, screenshots of, like, 700 PRR. The PRR that you can get with Alchemist is through the roof. It's higher than anything else in the game right now. And you guys know that I like to play tanks, and you know that I like to play tanks that are not normal tanks. I like to play something a little different. I like my little niche builds and like my little castery tanks. And so I wanted to do something like that with the Alchemist, and so wanted to give you guys some feedback about how that went, and the things that I liked about it, and the things that I didn't like about it. Hey, Mama. And welcome, everyone. So I'm going to go over, like spells that I like to use. I'll show you some numbers here. Now, I don't have my reaction going right now. So I'm going to get that going, and when I first get the reaction going, you're going to see the reaction spike. The reaction spike is when you first switch to a reaction. For 12 seconds, you get like a super buff, and then that wears off, but then you still get an ongoing buff. Your reaction is a nice buff, and there are 3 different reactions. There's the purple, orange, and green one, but they have fancy-ass names like Orchidium, Verdonite, and Pyrite. But you don't need to remember that, because like we talked about before, it's all just colors. It's all just, your alchemist spells are all just mixing primary colors to make the secondary colors. You're just mixing red, yellow, and blue to make green, orange, and purple. So you don't have to remember all the fancy-ass names, and so it's just the purple reaction is it's like the Alchemist. Oh, you didn't miss anything, Ivan. I'm just going over a recap now. Just started it of Alchemist Life 2. So the purple reaction is, basically the reaction that you'd want to be in if you were a Alchemist. And the Alchemist tree is a tankier tree that you can use. You can build a thrower out of it, you can build a melee out of it, or you can build like a tanky thing out of it. Okay? And so that's your purple stance is basically what you'd want to run in for that, because your purple stance gives you big bonuses to PRR. Now, and then the orange stance is like the nuker stance. That's what gives you bonuses to spell power. And then your green stance is like the DC caster stance. It gives you bonuses to positive and negative spell power, in addition to bonuses to spell DCs. So I'm running in the purple reaction pretty much all the time, or at least I want to. So I'm going to get that reaction going too. So look at the PRR now. In fact, let me get some buffs going here, because I want to get my martial hymn going. That's going to bump up the PRR a little bit. We'll do the GH. We don't really need to do anything else. Okay. Oh, and I want to turn my stance on, so now it's up to 335. That's the sacred defense from Paladin. So there's my resting, basically more or less resting PRR without the reaction going. So I'm going to get the reaction going. And how do we make purple? by mixing blue and red, and it doesn't matter what combination. You can do red then blue or blue then red, doesn't matter. So I'm going to do red spell. I love that. Dumps the potion on your head, and there it goes. I must have had a blue spell on deck and I didn't even realize it. Oh yeah, because I cast I cast the Greater Heroism, which is a blue spell, and then I did the Heartseeker. Look at see, it's up to 401 standing PRR. But let's break that reaction, because I didn't look right away and I didn't see the reaction spike. So again, without any reaction going, it's 335. And with the reaction spike, it's 471. And so to maximize your efficiency, you'd want to come up with like a spell rotation that tried to get that reaction spike going as often as possible. But you do have to break your reaction to get that reaction spike. You can't just keep casting purple spells and keep that spike going. You have to actually break the Orchidium or the purple reaction and then go back into it to get that spike. But Unsinful was saying that he was able to get that spike going like pretty much all on. But I don't see how that's possible because, like I said, you do have to break your reaction. So it would at least take a second or two to get it going. So there's going to be a brief moment of downtime, a brief gap where you wouldn't have any of that PRR. So as you can see, there's really nice PRR available. And I also want you to know, like, I'm not even running a tanky set. Like, there's a lot more available. And what I did this life was I didn't try to go all out with, getting every last piece of gear. I was just trying to use what I had. I'm just knocking out a past life. I'm not doing any kind of permanent life thing. So I'm just using what I had. So I'm going to just go over the gear that I had real quick. I'm using my 5-piece Legendary Green Steel set, the Ender set, which is a material and opposition set. The Docent I was using was just, I was able to purchase this with runes. This is the Hound of Zoria / Tempest Spine Docent. Here's another piece of Legendary Green Steel. This is the Circle of Malevolence, a really, really beautiful tanky kind of ring, because holy crap, I think that's the old, oh man, that's the old one. I gotta upgrade that. Yeah, this loot got an upgrade, and this is the old one. Holy crap. The new one, the new version, has better stats on it. In any event, this is a really nice, it's literally the highest Intimidate item in the game, has high resistance, and a resistance item that covers all of them is, not the easiest thing to come by. It's got good vitality and insightful sheltering. It's actually, the stats are better than that on the new version. I need to upgrade that. I can't believe I still have the old version on this tune. Here's another piece of Legendary Green Steel. What would I change about this build? Let me think about that. Here's another piece of Legendary Green Steel. Ring of Epic Elite, Ring of Shadows for Lesser Displacement and Ghostly in one spot. Here's another piece of Legendary Green Steel. Here's the Legendary Cloak of Balance. I wanted to have all-on freedom of movement, such an important buff. It also has parrying 10, which is nice. This was my con item. It's only a con 17 item, so you could get much better constitution, right? Quality con 4. I mean, there's better stats available. There's also resistance item. And my artifact was just, this is the artifact I run when I play the druid. So like I said, I didn't even go out of my way to get special gear. I was just using what I had, and the only gear that I'm using right now that is out of the ordinary would be the Docent and the Cloak of Balance. See, normally I don't have to run with a freedom of movement on Ginger Spice because normally I'm a druid and druids can cast freedom of movement, so I don't need freedom of movement item. So I went with the Cloak of Balance. So that's a wisdom artifact, but it has that has good healing, amplification, quality, physical sheltering. So there's definitely some decent things in there for a tanky tune. And then I had the filigrees that are in there are some definitely, because Ginger Spice is a caster tank, right? And so here's plus 10 MRR, plus 10 PRR, and and a point of wisdom. So, the PRR and MRR obviously is nice for a tank. The last item here was Legendary Compliance. So this is a high charisma item, general potency, exceptional alluring skills, great for intimidate. And then the shield I was using was Legendary Giant's Platter and Legendary Wild Frost. These are not, especially the weapon is not, in no, in no way, shape, or form is it optimal for what I'm doing this life. This is a weapon that I made for the druid, but it's just what I had. It's my sentient weapon that I had, so I used it. It was providing me some benefit though, because I do have the 3-piece grandfather shield set in there, so there's some constitution, some healing application, some PRR, and 5% stacking armor class. So it was providing me some benefit. So what would I change about it? Well, I'd probably get like a tanky set out of Sharn. I'd definitely have a more serious sentient weapon, no doubt about that. I would have a different artifact that was like either the Constitution artifact or, the Charisma artifact, and probably the Constitution artifact. This was a Constitution build. I chose Constitution on level ups. It wasn't an intelligence focused build. Yes, Mama, I got my 103rd Reaper point last night. That was very awesome. Booyah! I told Nimbin I'm coming for him. I told him I was going to catch up to him while he's over on hardcore. Nimbin's our Reaper point leader in the guild, and I'm second place. But he's got a lot more. I'll never catch him, at least not anytime. Not while he's on a hardcore, anyways. Okay, so it was really cool to run. It was a lot of PRR. Pretty damn good armor class. Yep, Trick, welcome. Just doing the end of life wrap up. And this is going to be a little introduction for some videos I'm going to be posting on YouTube. And I can't emphasize enough, this is not a build guide. I'm just showing you guys what I'm doing, so you guys can get some ideas about what kind of Alchemist you want to make. Because like I said, Alchemist is new, and we're all still learning it. So, Constitution build. Look at the saves. Pretty awesome. I'm not even in Reaper mode right now, right? So all these stats are going up in Reaper mode. In fact, let's go ahead and step into a Reaper dungeon so you can see, I have a lot of Reaper points, so do realize that. But I want you to see what the stats were, when I post these videos, what the stats were like. We're just going on R1, and I'm just showing you the stats. Okay, so there are the stats in Reaper mode. The crap went down. What the hell? Oh, because my buff went off and stuff. And okay. So 422 PRR in Reaper mode, 216 MRR, 323 armor class. So you understand the context of the performance that you're going to see in these videos. I was running in the Unyielding Sentinel Destiny, and this is how I had it set up. A little bit different than how I run it when Ginger Spice is a druid. When Ginger Spice is a druid, I would have, I think, maybe 3 points of Constitution, and I wouldn't have any of this lay on hand stuff. But since I had 5 levels of Paladin this life, I wanted to go ahead and get the lay on hand stuff. And so I'm lacking a few points of Constitution that I would normally have. My twists were also set up a little bit differently. So I had the Martial Hymn. That's a normal twist for me. That's a really great hymn that comes out of Fate Singer. In this case, well, what the Martial Hymn gives you is +1 to Strength, Dexterity, and Wisdom, +2 Sneak Attack dice, +20 maximum hit points, +10 PRR and MRR, +5 armor class, and +10 melee and range power. So that's a lot of PRR and MRR, and a little bit of hit points too, and a little bit of armor class too. So a really nice twist if you can afford it. All the hymns are really nice, by the way. If you haven't taken a look at the hymns since they made changes to the Epic Destinies, take a look at them. It used to be something called Echoes of the Ancestors, and there was like 12 different ones. They consolidated them into just 4 different hymns, and each hymn is like really powerful. You know, like the Arcane Hymn is definitely something that any caster is going to want to seriously consider trying to twist in, for example. And then look at the other hymns for your other builds. I also twisted in Meld into Darkness, and this comes out of Shadow Dancer. It's a tier 3 twist, and it says by merging with darkness itself, you gain 100% enhancement bonus to dodge chance that ignores your dodge cap for 15 seconds. So in other words, for 15 seconds, like, nothing can hit you physically. You can still, cast spells at you, but and what that's great for is, you're going into a big group of mobs, or you see a big scary Doom Reaper, you hit Meld into Darkness. Okay, the other twist that I chose is Damage Reduction. It's just 6 PRR, and that comes out of Fury of the Wild, right here. I also chose Rejuvenation Cocoon and Ephemeral Evolution. Although, I don't know, it just didn't seem like that was proccing very much. I might change that, but I couldn't, I don't normally play Paladins, and I first twisted in Primal Scream, and because it has 5 morale bonus to Strength and Constitution that lasts 3 minutes, and you get 5 charges, so it's like 15 minutes of plus 5 con, and I normally run that on Voodoo and Ginger, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working on this tune, but as it turns out, this is like a rage effect, and your Paladin doesn't benefit from rage effects or something like that. So, Primal Scream isn't going to work on the Paladin because of I guess it's, cannot become raged while Sacred Defense stance is active, so this is like a rage effect. See, it says nearby allies are raged. It's not like the rage spell, but it's a rage effect. So those are my twists, and that's the way I had my Epic Destiny set up. And when I would go into groups of mobs, the rotation that I would use to attack, and I wasn't doing much DPS. This is a low DPS, a very low DPS build. Okay, I'm not doing, the DPS I'm doing is not to kill mobs, it's just to generate hate. And then my hate is amplified by Commanding Presence, which says you generate plus 450% threat at all times with melee ranged and magical attacks. So that's why tanks can get away with not doing much DPS, because their DPS is amplified by the extra hate that they generate, or threat that they generate. The term hate and threat are interchangeable in this context. So I would first come in with Poison Strike, and that's out of the vial. That's a attack out of the vial chemistry right here, and there's 2 different versions. There's a melee and a ranged version, so I chose the melee version, of course. And then my second attack would be the spell-like ability Wave of Poison, which is right here, and both of these are poison damage, and Wave of Poison is just like a cone, it's almost like a poison dragon breath basically. And what's nice about this is it says when you hit, at the bottom there, it says when you hit a target that is immune to poison or poison damage with this spell, they become vulnerable to poisons and poison damage for 20 seconds. So I was able to damage everything with poison once I hit them with that. And that's a cone, so it's going to hit, lots of mobs that are in front of me. And then the third attack that I would use was Poison Breath. So even if they were immune, I just hit them with a wave. Therefore, the Poison Breath is going to do some damage. And then I would also throw multi-vial of poison. So it's just poison, poison, poison. So those are my 4 basic attacks that I would go in to, generate some hate. But I wasn't killing anything with it. It was just to generate hate. Like I said, it's a very low DPS build. I want to make sure that you realize that. I was the tank, and that's one of the things, like, I personally, the flavor of it's not for me. You're probably not going to see me doing any kind of Alchemist tank in the future, even though I like my castery tanks. I just, I want to do a little bit more, and I just felt more than ever, more than Voodoo's Warlock tank, more than Ginger's caster healer quasi tank, I was just the tank. I couldn't solo anything, but I can solo things on Ginger's Druid build and, Druid tank build, and I can solo things on Voodoo's Warlock tank build. I solo at a modest pace. It's not quick by any means, but I can do it at a pace that's comfortable for me. On this tune, I couldn't solo anything. I was totally reliant on others. Now, one of the things that I did is when I was leveling up in epics and I wanted to do slayers, what I was able to do, because you do your Infinite King's Forest slayers, you do your Orchard slayers, you do your Barovia slayers, your Thunderhome slayers, or whatever slayers you like, right? And that's massive, that's monster XP. Well, I was worthless out there. But what I did is I dumped Alchemist and I spent the points. I invested fully into Bombardier just for the purpose of doing Slayers for the couple of days that we did Slayers, and then I was using like fire spells just to nuke out in, Orchard and Thunderhome and all that stuff. And I definitely, I'm only 15 Alchemist, so I definitely wasn't doing as much DPS as a full-blown Alchemist, but it was enough to wreck shit in Slayer zones. And then when I was done doing my Slayers and I got to level 29, I dumped Bombardier and I went back into Alchemist. Flashtone, thank you for the sub. I appreciate you. So that was part of my epic leveling strategy. And during Heroics, I did the iconic thing during Heroics 15 through 19. It was definitely, the DPS that I did was definitely more meaningful, but once I got into Epics, it was the DPS I was doing was meaningless in terms of actually doing damage. It was just meaningful in terms of generating hate or generating threat. The choice of Bladeforged was only because I didn't have any Bladeforged past lives, so I thought, what the hell? I wanted to do an iconic because I wanted to meet up with somebody who was in upper Heroics. Actually, Little Mama, and so I was like, I'll do an iconic, and like I said, I chose Bladeforged only because I didn't have any Bladeforged lives. So this wasn't any kind of optimal choice. It wasn't a strategic choice. It was based on purely that I could use the past life. But I actually found it somewhat beneficial because not only was I able to get like some Constitution, and I was able to reduce arcane spell failure. And I did run with Adamantine Body, but I didn't switch to Adamantine Body until endgame. I was actually running with like a simple weapon and an orb up until endgame, because there are some bonuses that you get from here if you wield an orb, and you get this little stance going. But this stance, each one of the different Alchemist trees have a little stone stance, like Stone of the Savant for a Bombardier, or Stone of the Subliminal for the Alchemist. But I was running with this while leveling up, and right up until the point I got to endgame. But really, this just gives you 5% double strike and 5% double shot and blur. And double strike and double shot wasn't meaningful for me for what I was doing. And the blur, I have that on my Dasa, and I was casting displacement on myself anyways. His blur doesn't stack with displacement. It's not a separate mischance. It's a big misunderstanding in the community that has persisted for years. Those are the same types of mischance. They do not stack. They are not separate mischances. There is no point of having both blur and displacement on yourself. But displacement is a spell that I'm having to constantly cast, so it was nice, like if displacement runs out, to have that blur as a backup. If the 50% mischance because of displacement wears off, the blur 20% mischance was always there. In any event, I had blur from other sources, so I just decided to get rid of that, and I got rid of this deadly poison stuff too, because I just didn't feel like I needed it. It gives +2 to hit and +1 to damage while holding a simple weapon in your main hand, and a simple weapon or rune arm or nothing in your offhand. But I was doing like the only attack that was to hit was this poison strike, right? The other 3 attacks, those are spells. The Wave of Poison and the Poison Breath and the Multi-Vial of Poison. Those are spells. I don't need to hit for that. So I just dumped that and ended up spending more in Sacred Defender. And notice that I am Tier 5 Sacred Defender. I'm not Tier 5 Alchemist. I didn't feel like the stuff in Tier 5 Alchemist was at all meaningful for a tank. I mean, the Greater Wave of Poison was kind of a neat attack, but, I don't need that. I'm not going for DPS. Hey Tolab, welcome, buddy. Here's some more to hit and damage with melee attacks. I didn't need that. Contaminated Strikes. This was stacks of vulnerable. This is, more about doing DPS. Again, this is not a DPS build. Chemical weapons, your simple weapons gain +1 weapon. Like, I don't need that. Sapping ambition, while your reaction is purple, you get simple weapon in your main hand, orb and offhand, rune armor, nothing. You get attacking your end's 10% chance to gain temporary spell points, +1 per alchemist level. That wasn't meaningful for me. So tier 5, if you're doing like a tanky thing, tier 5 is largely meaningless. So I was much better off going with Sacred Defender, and getting big, PRR and MRR, some additional lay on hands, all these bonuses that were available. This is, magic missile immunity, so that was nice. And speaking of magic missile immunity, I'm going to point something out that was an oversight on my part, because you can get magic missile immunity from the apothecary tree. So right here in tier 2. But what I overlook, because I was like, why isn't this working? Why am I getting hit by magic missiles? I'm taking screenshots and I'm all angry. I'm getting ready to make an angry forum post. But I read right past the fact that it's while in cloth armor or composite body. And I had the mithril body going at the time. And then, like I said, at endgame I switched to the adamantine body. It's only cloth armor or composite body. So this isn't going to help you with like a, adamantine or mithril body and, kind of a Pally Alchemist tank. So I wasn't able to benefit from the magic missiles there, the magic missile protection there, but I was able to get it here through Sacred Shield and Sacred Defender. I was also able to get, the Reconstruction SLA, which was nice, and I did go with the Healer's Friend. One of the things that I didn't like about running it is that the Alchemist gets healing spells, which is great. Like, I love playing healers, so I want to throw some healers. But here's the shitty thing. The healing spells are yellow spells, also known as gold leaf spells. Or guild leaf spells is the fancy name. You can just think of it as yellow. Remember, all the spells are just primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. And they have fancy-ass names that are just going to make it confusing for you, or at least it did for me. But all you have to do is think of them as yellow, blue, and red, and that makes purple, orange, and green. So the yellow spells, the healing spells were all yellow spells, and yellow is no part of purple, right? Because purple is red and blue mixed together. So when you cast a yellow spell, a healing spell, guess what happens? You lose your purple stance, and that's your PRR stance. So I really didn't like the fact that, if I ever wanted to throw heals at my friends, my party members, that my PRR stance broke. And then I've got to cast 3 spells to get back into it. I got to go like, okay, blue spell, red spell, blue spell. Then I'm back into it. So that was irritating. I would really like to be the kind of tank that can throw some heals, without it being a detriment to myself. I mean, it only takes a couple seconds to get back in the purple, but, if you're throwing heals, it's probably because things are getting a little hairy, and if things are getting a little hairy, you don't want to lose that PRR. So that was, like I said, that was irritating. But I did have other sources of heals that I could throw. So to avoid breaking that, when I needed to heal my party members, a lot of times I was throwing Renewal from Unyielding Sentinel, which is a wonderful little, super, super cheap SLA heal over time. It's not a big burst heal, but in terms of maintenance healing, it's huge. You can do a lot of maintenance healing with that. And then I also had Rejuvenation Cocoon. So if if a party member was took a big hit, I could throw both of them on them right away. I could also throw them both on myself and wouldn't break the Orchideum reaction. And then I could also do the Reconstruct SLA on myself as well, and that doesn't break because those aren't color coded. These aren't Alchemist spells. The Reconstruct, SLA, Renewal, and Cocoon, those are not color coded. They have nothing to do with your reactions. They're not gonna break or interrupt your reaction in any way. It's just something totally separate. But once I got, when I was doing endgame content, it was very rare that I was actually throwing my heals, and I had the Cure Critical Wounds and the Cure Serious Wounds and those are masses. As an aside, with the Alchemist, one of the things that sucks, and I guess this is the same as an Artificer, but I've never played an Artificer. When you throw the healing vial, it needs a line of sight, but not just a line of sight. It needs a clear path because it is a physical vial that you're throwing at your target, and if anything is in the way, like a mob, it will smash prematurely against the mob and not go into effect. It's kind of like a ray spell. Like ray spells, you need to have a clear path, right? But whereas like a dot or a healing spell just hits your target, you don't need that physical clear path. But with the vials, you do, and you're going to notice that when you play Alchemist and you're throwing heals, there are going to be a lot of them that are going to get interrupted, that are going to prematurely explode because there was something between you and your target, and that sucks. The heals are great. They've been really powerful, but it sucks in those moments that they don't land because they prematurely exploded. One of the things that a viewer had suggested, and they said they got into the habit of doing, is when they were throwing heals, they got in the habit of jumping and throwing them, and that way it kind of hopefully will go over any mobs, for example, that might be between you and your target. So a little tip that you can try to get into the habit is jumping and throwing your heals. So one of the things that somebody asked, what would I do different? Well, one of the things that I would do different is and I just noticed this last night, I would have dumped the greater stone skin, by the time I got gold skin, and I would have instead used greater evolution and used that to get like 5 more stacking constitution. It just, I just didn't think about it. Just kind of forgot. I mean, we blasted through epics so fast that it was just out of mind, But you can cast both greater stone skin, and even stone skin and gold skin on yourself. They don't stack, but they do work one after the other. So the gold skin gives me 450 points of damage reduction. Well, it's DR 30, and it will absorb 450 points of damage. And then once that runs out, the greater stone skin is there, which gives me DR 20 and absorbs 300 points of damage. So they work one after the other. They don't stack. That doesn't give me 50 DR, but like I said, once the one was used up, then it would start drawing from the other. And that's not, especially when you're doing Reapers at endgame, that's not a lot of protection, but it is one more layer of protection. So I was casting gold skin on myself, and if you just did the 12 Alchemist, you wouldn't have access to level 6 spells. You wouldn't get golds, but it's not a big deal. Not having gold skin is not gonna, make or break things. See if there's any other spells worth mentioning. You can see I still had some of the fire spells from when I was nuking in the Slayer zone. While I was leveling up in Heroics, even though I wasn't a DC caster, I did find Glue Bomb to be useful. I definitely like the Alluring Elixir because that gives me +4 insight bonus to your social skills. And that's, social skills include Intimidate, and, as a tank you want Intimidate. I was using buffs like, Elemental Skin, Augment Armor, Displacement, Greater Heroism, which is called Greater Liquid Courage. A lot of the spells for the Alchemists are the same as other spells. They're just given new names, like Greater Liquid Courage is Greater Heroism. The same thing. I did take the Bottled Boost Sprint. It's Sprint Boost. I already showed you I was using Poison Breath, Multi-Vial of Poison. And I would have traded out, like I said, Greater Stone Skin for Greater Evolution. And Greater Evolution gives you a +4 stacking bonus to whatever stat you choose. You can only have one evolution on yourself at a time, so it's only one stat. So like if you were, most alchemists are going to choose to do intelligence, but doing the tanking thing, I would want to choose Constitution. And there is like a lesser evolution. There's like an evolution spell, and there's a lesser evolution spell. So once you get the higher version, you just don't cast the other anymore. So and you cannot do, like I said, you can only have one evolution on you at a time. So you can't do like regular evolution for constitution and greater evolution for intelligence. That would not work. It's just only one evolution at a time. My one paladin spell was protection from evil. And that's the gist of what I was doing. And I felt like it was a decent tank. There were definitely moments that I got beat up. But when you're doing Higher Skull Reaper, you're going to get beat up. And a lot of times we weren't even running with a healer, so I was just relying on smaller heals that my party members could throw at me, and the little bit of healing that I could do on myself. But some of the other buffs that I use on myself regularly, besides the Meld into Darkness, is, I also had the Hood of Unrest. This is a really, really nice clicky that comes out of the Night Rebels event that comes out in October. It's a 50% bonus to dodge that lasts for 20 seconds that ignores your dodge cap. So, if my Meld into Darkness was on timer and I really needed, some extra protection, I could throw the Hood of Unrest. And that's all. You only get to use it once per rest, but, it's definitely a nice little oh shit button to have. Super cheap to farm and easy to farm out of Night Rebels in October. And I was also keeping displacement on myself, at all times. And then the last oh shit button for your tank is the Undying Vanguard. And this is so important. Any tank that's running an Unyielding Sentinel, I think, should have this. It heals yourself for 1,000 hit points, and then for 30 seconds you gain 10,000 temporary hit points. It's only usable once for rest, but it's the kind of thing like, it is the final oh shit button that, you're down to low health and it's a huge fight and you really need to stay alive as a tank, you hit that. So I was using, Meld into Darkness, the Hood of Unrest, and Undying Vanguard, pretty regularly in quests. And you can, when it comes to the Hood of Unrest and the Undying Vanguard, which only usable once per rest, you can definitely, leverage your shrine usage. If you didn't use those and you're passing a shrine, if you don't need to shrine, save it in case a big fight comes up and you had to use your Undying Vanguard and Hood of Unrest. You can go, okay, I'm going to go back to that shrine to get those back. So that's the gist of what I'm doing, and I just wanted to be able to put all that into context so people could get some ideas about the kinds of alchemists that they might want to make.
Oh, what, does somebody
Has it
want to spawn?
really been a week or two? Wow. Well, always good to have you. We just got done with guild raids. It was a great night of raids. We did R1 Strahd, super smooth. We did a couple Abbot raids. We had our second time was under 7 minutes. Project Nemesis went super smooth, and our 2 out to handle. I'm telling you, if we hadn't taken so much time to buff, I think that would have been our fastest time. We did it in 12 minutes and 0 seconds. But, we were not trying at all to be quick about it, but the DPS that we had was like the amount of time that it took to beat down the boss in each phase was noticeably faster than normal for us. So that was awesome. I wish we had been quicker about things so we could have gotten a better idea of how fast it really was. Yeah, I was doing the whole morning show, and that's over with now because I just cycled over into, I did my last morning show yesterday, and like I'm starting to move over into like an afternoon and evening shift now, so it's going to be evening raids that get live streamed for the next week or two. We got a Famine Reaper back here and some wolves. Don't go to the end. Sophiddlin is Syax, by the way. Did not have a teaching raid last week. I couldn't swing it because of where my sleep cycle was, so I just decided to skip a week instead of trying to do an afternoon run. But our teaching raid this week got Venji.
Vengeance.
He's mine.
Nice
Let's
work.
go.
Man.
So if you kill a Vengeance while it's buffed, do we get the Vengeance buff?
I don't think so.
I mean, charmed.
Let's go ahead and pull. Oh, we got a wolf back there. We got wolves. Looks like
We'll go for it.
we got 2 Vengeance Reapers.
Okay, I got them both. For now.
Yeah, let's kill this boss real quick, guys.
I got the big boy.
Oh, that wasn't fair. I was not in the circle. Alright, the Vengeance are loose.
The Benjis are loose! The Benjis are loose!
Right?
Boss is almost
Wait a
dead.
minute.
I thought I sent you a raise. Oh, the boss is buffed. Sweet.
Hell yeah.
We don't need to do the optional on R8. Or do you want to?
I say we do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Reaper mythic gear. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I use the cloak from here, so F it.
Ready for race.
it's not that hard aim.
Thank you.
Can't intimidate scarecrows. So annoying.
Yeah.
If anybody gets a nice cloak, I wouldn't mind rolling on it. Mythic 1 gloves, Mythic 2 shield.